Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here with us today because we're looking at the year 2026. And 2026 is rapidly defining itself through this profound, incredibly high stakes tug of war. On one side, we've got these destabilizing global risks, right? We're talking conflict, inflation, staggering humanitarian needs. But then, on the absolute flip side, we are witnessing this remarkable technological resilience and massive investments that are literally keeping the global economy afloat. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how these massive macro forces are colliding. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by navigating the 2026 global economy and this current oil shock. Then, we'll explore the booming AI semiconductor market, map out the EU's geopolitical priorities, take a serious look at the global humanitarian overview, and finally, we'll finish up on the pitch with World Cup Group F. All right, Section 1, the 2026 global economy navigating the oil shock. We're going to look specifically at how the world is handling a pretty significant energy hurdle right now. So, to kick things off, Fitch Ratings has actually just lowered global growth for 2026 down to 2.4%. And the primary driver here? It's the US-Iran oil crisis and the prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This specific geopolitical tension has pushed our base case for Brent crude all the way up to $87 a barrel. And wow, is this creating a strong headwind for world growth? Because, as you probably know, higher oil prices translate directly into higher inflation. That squeezes our real wages, it dampens consumer spending, and it just raises input costs for businesses right across the board. And honestly, this perfectly illustrates the central economic clash of the entire year. The severe drag of these geopolitical conflicts is actually being met by this massive counterweight, which is the AI tech boom. The impact of the oil shock is being heavily cushioned by stronger than expected momentum in global IT investment. Just to give you an idea, US IT investment alone grew by 18% year over year in just the first quarter. This tech boom is boosting global trade, and it's keeping things like Asian semiconductor exports incredibly strong. Without all this tech investment, trust me, that 2.4% global growth figure would be noticeably worse. Which naturally brings us to Section 2, the AI semiconductor boom, cushioning the global economy. Let's examine exactly how this specific sector is actively buffering the world right now. The sheer scale of this boom is just staggering. Generative AI chips are projected to approach $500 billion in revenue in 2026 alone. $500 billion. That is roughly half of all global chip sales. To put that into perspective for you, AMD's CEO recently estimated that the total addressable market for AI accelerator chips for data centers could hit $1 trillion by 2030. The money pouring into this sector is, without a doubt, the economic engine of 2026. But we do have to look at the structural reality behind all that money. As Deloitte Insights points out, the industry is heavily exposed here. They noted that the industry seems to have placed all its eggs in the AI basket. Now, the absolute paradox of 2026 is that while these high-value AI chips now drive roughly half of total industry revenue, they actually represent less than 0.2% of total chip unit volume. Seriously, think about that for a second. Less than a fraction of a percent of physical chips are driving half the money. It's this high-margin, low-volume paradigm, and it's creating a kind of zero-sum competition for manufacturing capacity. That's actually disrupting other sectors, driving up prices for everyday things like smartphone and PC memory. So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the systemic risks that could derail this boom. Because if this sector falters, our global economic cushion basically disappears. Deloitte warns of four main risks. First, return on investment. If AI monetization takes longer than expected, these massive data center projects could just be canceled. Second, power constraints. Get this. AI data centers are going to need 92 extra gigawatts of power by 2027. The current grid simply might not be able to handle that. Third is rapid innovation. Next year's chips are going to be so much better that today's really expensive chips become liabilities. And finally, pricing. If cheaper, competitive chips hit the market, it could completely deflate this whole revenue bubble. All right, let's move on to Section 3. EU priorities and geopolitics, navigating the tensions. We're shifting away from the tech world now to see how governments are actively managing these massive global pressures. Now, the EU is facing an incredibly complex year. Top of their agenda is security and defense readiness. They've made a commitment to ensure readiness by 2030, which means a massive push for joint procurement and just much faster defense production. Right alongside that, they're managing Ukraine's path toward EU accession while dealing with the ongoing war. Then, this June, the bloc begins implementing the new Migration Pact, shifting the focus entirely from legislation over to enforcement. And hanging over all of this, the intense negotiations for the next massive multi-annual budget for 2028 to 2034, where spending on defense, competitiveness, and climate are all going to fiercely compete. And geographically speaking, the EU is walking a very, very delicate tightrope. On one side, they're managing a systemic rivalry with China, actively trying to reduce strategic dependencies on Chinese raw materials and green tech. This is especially true given China's support for Russia's military industry. But then on the other side, the EU has to carefully navigate its relationship with the US. They're dealing with potential US tariffs and really strict US export controls on those exact advanced AI chips we were just talking about. Section 4. The Global Humanitarian Overview. The Human Cost. Look, amidst all these shifting borders and tech booms, we absolutely have to look at the direct human toll of these colliding instabilities. Because this is what it all boils down to on the ground. 239 million people globally are in need of humanitarian assistance right now in 2026. Conflict, violence, and climate change have just compounded and worsened ongoing crises, pushing this number to a breaking point. These are the populations most vulnerable to the exact macroeconomic shocks and geopolitical deadlocks we've just been outlining. And right back to back with that staggering human scale, look at this massive financial requirement. $33 billion. That is the funding needed for the global humanitarian overview to support these populations in 2026. It's kind of a stark reality check, isn't it? While $500 billion is pouring into AI chips, securing the $33 billion needed to protect millions of lives remains this massive, urgent collective challenge for the entire global community. Okay, Section 5, World Cup 2026, Group F, a global unifier. Amidst these really heavy global headwinds, the world is actually still finding brief moments to unite on the pitch. We are looking at one of the tournament's most intense battlegrounds. The landscape of Group F is an absolute nail-biter right now. The Netherlands are sitting pretty comfortably at the top with 4 points and a healthy +4 goal difference after that dominating 5-1 win over Sweden. They really just need to avoid defeat against Tunisia to automatically qualify. But look at the rest of this table. Sweden, Japan, and Tunisia are all still in the fight to advance to the round of 32. Sweden totally controls their own destiny. A win guarantees they progress. But Japan still has a game in hand. And hey, even Tunisia has an outside chance if they win big. Now here is where the drama really peaks. Under the new 2026 rules, FIFA prioritizes head-to-head results before overall goal difference. Step 1 is points in direct matches between tied teams. And you guys, this changes everything. It means an upcoming match like Japan versus Sweden isn't just about accumulating points. It effectively becomes a sudden death knockout match. Because head-to-head outweighs overall goal difference, every single pass and tackle in those direct encounters carries exponential weight. It's going to be wild. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. We've gone from oil shocks acting as a drag on global growth to this $500 billion AI life raft keeping the economy afloat. We've seen the delicate geopolitical chess being played in Europe and the 239 million people relying on our shared humanitarian commitments. We even saw this high-stakes pressure mirrored right down to the sudden death tension of the World Cup. So I want to leave you with this. How will this unprecedented collision of massive technological leaps, shifting global powers, and our fundamental human resilience ultimately define the legacy of 2026? Think about that as you watch the rest of the year unfold. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.